Well, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for our webinar today, Demystifying Financial Aid. Is college still worth it, right? Is it still something you want to do? And of course, our answer is yes, right? We are here at the podcast studio in Rhodes College in Memphis, Tennessee. I am Gil Villanueva, and I am your Dean of Admission and Financial Aid.
And hello, I'm Michael Morgan. I'm the Director of Financial Aid here at Rhodes.
Well, we're going to cover a variety of topics today, including recent trends that's going on, the rising cost of college. Of course, we're going to talk about that. And Michael will talk about how perhaps you can begin to think about paying for it. We're going to talk about all the different application plans from early decision to regular decision and everything in between. We're going to talk about merit aid and need-based aid and how perhaps, it might differ from school to school and how perhaps you might want to go ahead and pursue how to apply for them, those important financial aid awards. We're going to talk about resources and tools that you have at your disposal, which is a lot, actually. And then, of course, Michael will cover all the nuts and bolts about financial aid. We're going to talk, of course, a little bit about what you can expect from Rhodes. And then we're going to end our conversation with a little Q&A. And by the way, please use the Q&A feature. Feel free to extend your questions. Go ahead and use that feature. And when we get to that portion of our program, we will get to as many questions as possible. But before we begin, why don't we go ahead and give our friends a little bit of a background about ourselves. So I'll just begin.
Okay.
So again, my name is Gil. I was actually born in the Philippines, and we moved to the States when I was 12. And, all of us were, my parents, obviously, were thinking about a better sort of future for their children. And thank goodness that they did that because, affording us the kind of education here in the States meant the sort of such a transformative thing for all of us because, being low income growing up in the States, there weren't a lot of resources for our family. But that said, when it was time to think about college, there's this thing that a buddy of mine told me about who I played football with. Gil, you actually have pretty good grades. There's this thing called financial aid. Oh my gosh, I love financial aid, everyone, because I truly believe that it is the great equalizer. It allows so many students and families to be able to realize a college education that they normally might not be able to afford. So that's a little bit about myself.
Okay. Well, Gil, I noticed that we had a couple people from Kentucky, and that's where I'm from. I grew up in Eastern Kentucky. And like you, though, family didn't have a lot of resources. So decided that I needed to go to college and want to go to college, but wasn't quite sure how to get there. Mm-hmm. Luckily, I had an uncle that went to college before me, and so he kind of paved the way as far as how to apply for financial aid, what forms to use, and those types of things. Mm-hmm. But once I got to school, it was the people in the financial aid office that took care of me for the 4 or 5 years that it took me in order to graduate from college. And so, I never thought I would be in financial aid, but found a love for it and still in financial aid today. So that's just a brief history of Michael Morgan.
Wow. Well, everyone, just so you know, Michael, you complete me. Let's be clear about that. So let's go ahead and ask some questions.
Okay.
Well, actually, you might want to throw me a question.
Well, you mentioned earlier that we're going to talk a little bit about trends. And financial aid and college has been on the minds, I'm sure, of all the families that are here, but it's definitely been in the news each and every day. You can't turn on the TV without hearing something about college, about affordability and those types of things. Mm-hmm. What are some of the things that you think our families would like to know, but that you have researched as the VP of enrollment related to college and trends and those types of things?
There's a lot. There's a lot going on.
Let's try to narrow it down.
But I picked the big ones.
Okay.
Talk about affordability and cost of attendance, right? It's sort of at the very top of all of the different articles and conversation and all the media things out there. The rising cost of college, is it really still affordable? Is it still worthwhile? And of course, our answer is a resounding yes. But that said, wow, this was actually really cool stuff. College is actually more affordable than you might think. And actually, when did some research, the College Board produces a lot of research. And I encourage all of you, don't always believe what you're reading in mass media or what's in the internet or in the news, just because, I'm not so sure about the sources of the data that they're using. But the College Board and NACAC and all those sort of other higher ed educational organizations, there's researchers that they hire and then go through so much data nationally that I personally believe in the information that they're extending. So that said, get this, everyone. The average net tuition fees paid by first-time, full-time college students last year, right, for those who are thinking about, let's say, a public institution in state, actually went down from a decade ago, from 2,800 to from 4,300 to 2,800. And for those students thinking about private school, it actually went from 19,330 to actually, guess what, 16,500. So it's fascinating that over the last decade, right, college attendance actually has gotten less expensive, less costly for families. And you know why? And you know what? You know what the big reason is?
No, tell me.
Financial aid.
Financial aid.
Yes, I love financial aid. So let's go ahead and here's some more information for you. So the enrollment cliff, you've heard of the enrollment cliff, right?
I have heard of that, yes.
Well, it's upon us. According to national data again, it looks like we're going to have anywhere between 400,000 to 500,000 fewer college-going students in our great country. Well, that's not going to be necessarily a good thing for so many colleges and university, but there's a bit of a silver lining behind that. That really means that it's going to be a buyer's market for so many, right, students thinking about going to college, because now there's fewer of you. And then that means that a lot more colleges and universities are going to do their very best to have you on campus and be wonderful students and ultimately alumni. So that's the enrollment cliff. The other thing, the higher education sort of community, and that is composed of various organizations, but mostly colleges and universities. You probably have heard it's been under attack a little bit in the last 5 to 7 years because of the rising cost, right? And people not necessarily understanding the net price. The net price is really the most important factor, right? When you're thinking about buying sort of a vehicle, there's the sticker price, but ultimately with other discounts, well, it's the net price that you're going to be ultimately paying. In other words, out of your pocket. So that said, the bottom line is cost of attendance it's true, it's high for many Americans and international students. There's student debt. And by the way, student debt, I actually did some more research for you. The average nationally is just over $29,000, which is a lot, don't get me wrong. But sometimes you hear these stories from the media. Oh, someone took $100,000 worth of student debt. Those are the extremes, right? Let's look again at the good data that we have provided by all these wonderful educational organizations. So that said, ROI, return on investment, a lot of the sort of unfortunate political issues that transpired last year. I think this is one of the big reasons why higher ed is such under the microscope day in and day out. Now, in terms of the value proposition or the return on investment, so again, since I had long, beautiful black hair, right, there's this study out there. It's called Education Pays. It's actually produced by the College Board. And what they do is look at the data in terms of what people earn after graduation from high school, from a 2-year college, from a college, graduate school, including those also who did not finish college. And the bottom line is, since they started doing this research, every year it shows the value of a college education. And here's some examples for you. So it's not only higher income for the individual, people pay more in taxes, which is good because it'll go to social services, it'll pay for, partly for education and other programs. Also, those with a higher education degree are more likely to be employed. So when the economy is not as strong, we have a recession, people who have college degrees actually tend to hang on at a higher rate onto their jobs. And if they lose whatever job, it's easier for them to find another job. The other piece is there's less reliance on public assistance for those with a college degree or higher. It also shows here and healthier lifestyles. Folks with degrees tend to be more active physically. And this is really interesting. They actually spend more time, right, with their children. They have more of an active role in raising their kids, which is a win-win, right, gang? So, and last but not least, this is really interesting. Over a lifetime, the monies that people with degrees or higher will earn compared to those without a college degree is a lot of money. I'll give you some examples real quick. I'll just give you one. So here's the deal, guys. Ready for this one? The percentage of full-time year-round workers age 35 to 44 earning $100,000 or more in 2021 ranged from 4% for those without a high school degree, 7% for those with a high school degree, 35% for those with a college degree, and 49% for those with an advanced degree. Now, let's do some quick math. And Michael, I know you're really good in math, right?
That's right.
Let's say you're 40 years old, a long time ago. So, Michael, you're 40 years old, you're making $100,000, and you're going to work until when?
65.
65, 25 years. So let's take the 25 years and you're making 100, and not even accounting for the fact that you probably will get bonuses, maybe a raise, maybe get promoted. But let's say you're stuck at $100,000, which is still good. 25 times 100,000 is what?
2.5 million.
This is why he's the director of financial aid, everyone. You complete me, man. So my turn to ask you some questions. I'm sorry, that was a long answer. So Michael, with the rising cost of college, right? So how do families and how do students pay for it?
Well, that's a really good question. I think everyone on the podcast here today really understands the importance of education. And I don't know that we really need to sell them on going to college, right? Everyone here is looking at college. Obviously, they're looking at Rhodes. But paying for it is a whole different thing. Having two kids that have gone to college, recently graduating from college, I understand how expensive college can be. And as a father trying to finance that for your kids and wanting them to go to the best school possible that we can afford does bring some anxiety. And so one of the things that we do, and I'm very proud of that we do at Rhodes, is we try to marry two types of aid. There's merit aid, which is based on scholastic achievement, right? And your grades in school. And then there's also need-based aid. And we do our best to try to marry those two so that families get rewarded for both the merit abilities and also those that need help can also receive a little bit of different assistance. The way that we do that is simply two things. The application for admission at Rhodes, that's all that's required for applying for merit scholarship. So you have to have your application for admissions by one of our deadlines. December the 1st is our first deadline. By applying by December the 1st, you're going to be in line with some of our premier, most competitive scholarships. After that, by some of the deadlines, and I think you'll talk a little bit about early decision and early action, but if you apply, fill out your financial aid application, and we have two different types that we talk about. One, the CSS profile that is designed by the College Board, and the other is the FAFSA. So when you fill out that need-based financial aid form, then it will qualify you we'll look at institutional aid first, right? Rhodes, as mentioned before, puts a lot of its money towards institutional aid, grant aid, in addition to the merit. And then we'll look at the federal government to see what you're eligible for in the forms of grants, student employment, and also federal student loans, which is still a very valuable resources for those families. And you mentioned about student loans. The average debt for a 4-year degree is $29,000.
Yeah.
That's less
That was last year.
That's less than the cost of a car. And the car will be long rusted out, but your education will continue to pay. In addition to that, we'll look at the state. If you're from the state of Tennessee, you will qualify for some state scholarships, maybe even state grants. But we look at all of that in order to make financial aid or make college affordable. And that's our goal. We're just simply trying to allow you to afford the best quality education possible. And we think we've done a pretty good job of doing that or accomplishing that.
And I appreciate your answer, because my wife and I, we're that family that, we make enough, and we didn't really qualify for as much or any at some point. So we were clear to our own children about well, this is what mom and dad can afford. And you need to think about, well, the schools that you're thinking about. First, we want you to think about the right fit, the best match for you, and the things that you want to accomplish. That is really, really important. That's primary. But one of the things that we encourage families to do is to really have an honest conversation about, the cost of college and what the family is able to pay. Because, and this is my own 2 cents worth, we don't want young people to get so excited about a school they get into only to be informed that it's not going to happen. And that's why I think, participating in these kind of webinars and doing your research and looking at really, really good, reliable information is really critical because, again, as a parent, we want the best for our children. I mean, that's just the bottom line.
Right.
But we also have these realities. And, the more communication we have with our young people, the better off things are going to be. Would you agree?
Yeah, I did the same with my kids. I told them, dream big, as big as you want to. We applied for several different colleges, and Rhodes, of course, it was included in one. And then after we got our financial aid award notices from each of the colleges, we just laid them all out. This is what it costs. This is what the financial aid that you're going to get to kind of come up with that number. You were talking about the net price, right? The net price of college is the cost minus any other aid that you receive, whether it's from the state, from the federal government, whatever. But what is the family actually paying? And we looked at all of them, and we made a decision, right, as far as which ones could we afford, best afford, and that would give them the best opportunities in the future without burdening them too much. And so that's exactly what we did. I mentioned something earlier about early decision, early action, but I didn't explain that very well. Gil, can you tell the families what the difference is between those different applications and why it's important?
Sure. So Michael's talking about various application plans. Now, for the parents in the room, we're all in the same vintage, right? Back in the day, there's really one deadline. It's regular decision. And then all of a sudden, there's a thing called early decision. So you went from regular decision, and now there's early decision. Early decision is an option whereby a student that has identified, and he or she, they have identified that one school that they really, really want to attend. And if offered admission, they will go ahead and enroll at that school. But that student and his or her family have decided that they're comfortable with one financial aid award. Because don't forget, with early decision, right, it's that binding agreement that the student will sign, the parent or caregiver will sign, the counselor will sign, or school official will sign, right? Saying that, if you offered me admission, I will attend, provided financial aid works out. So we tell young people all the time and their families, if you're absolutely sure there's that really top pick for you, then yes, early decision is a great option, because here's a great tip for all of you. Usually, the applicant pool is going to be a lot smaller, right? It's not going to be as huge as it's going to be in regular decision or in early action. Now, early action is a program where you get to apply early, you get to know early, the notification is earlier than regular decision. Regular decision is sort of the last date at many schools, and notification usually a lot further down the road. But early action, I like, because you get to know early, but you don't have to attend. So the quick story is this: with my son, he is just in love with this one school. And, he did his research. And of course, my wife and I did our own research on the side, because, we can't afford to pay the entire cost of attendance for him to go. But they do have merit scholarships. And sort of, we both agreed as a family, well, because the scholarships at that school was not really going to be announced until March, it really didn't make sense for him to apply early decision, because we would end up just saying, well, we have to wait, and what if he has another school down the road that he might want to apply to? So the bottom line is, it all worked out. It was a Disney ending. He ended up getting this scholarship. But again, early decision is great. But for those who want to compare, right, as you mentioned, different financial aid offers from different schools, you have early action and regular decision. But again, if you have the option between early action and regular decision, my vote is with early action. just because there's really not a lot, there are no setbacks to that.
But wouldn't you agree that early decision in a school that's very selective, you probably in some ways sometimes have a better opportunity to get admitted, right? That's one of the key advantages for early decision.
At many schools.
Right, at many schools. And so that's one thing to simply consider, but it is binding. So it's important to kind of know that.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, let me ask you a question. So I think it's really, really important for our friends in the webinar to really learn a little bit more about, because you talked about merit scholarships, merit aid, need-based aid. Could you talk a little bit about, how things might be sort of differently awarded from school to school?
Well, that's a very good question. One of the things that we tell people when I do high school seminars is to be in close contact with your financial aid administrators, either at the college or, in our case, a lot of our admissions counselors are very versed in financial aid, and they're who you would contact for to keep you regularly apprised of what's going on. But each college does it a little bit different. As I mentioned before, we have merit scholarships and we also have need-based scholarships, and a lot of that has to do with the funding that's available to Rhodes and how we choose to allocate our funds. Some schools have more money towards merit, but they have very little institutional need-based aid. They rely on federal aid and state aid in order to help their neediest families. Other schools are the opposite. They offer most of their money in merit scholarships and very little. They offer very little in merit scholarships. So they've chose to focus on need. A lot of our more some of our very selective liberal arts schools have gone to that need-based model, which offers in often cases, very few merit scholarships to very few, maybe less than 10%. And everyone else has to apply by either using the CSS profile or the financial aid form or a combination of two for any need-based aid, right? And if you qualify, you get it. And if you don't, then you don't. So I have a very interesting story. I ran into a student just the other day, and he was asking me about financial aid, how it works. He was a junior here at Rhodes. And he shared with me his experience in financial aid. Now, this is a very good student, as most of our students are, and graduating as one of the top students in his school, he decided to apply for very selective liberal arts school, maybe a lot of them in the Southeast and some of them, a lot in the Northeast and some of them in the South.
Oh, there's a lot of them there.
Yeah, and he was admitted to almost all of them. The difference was, though, between them and Rhodes, many of them are very well known. Many of them cost a little bit more than Rhodes, but they offer mostly need-based aid. They fund based mostly on need. He wasn't fortunate to receive one of his merit scholarships they have because there were so few.
They're not going to qualify anyway.
And because of his family income, he didn't qualify for any need-based aid. So his family was faced, though they were happy to be admitted to these schools, paying the full tuition.
Right.
Now at Rhodes, using the balanced approach, we were able to give him a merit scholarship. And yes, his family made way too much to qualify for need-based scholarships, but the merit scholarship alone, that combined with our comparable cost, was enough to greatly offset the cost of his family over the 4-year period. As a matter of fact, in this particular case, he's going to be able to graduate from Rhodes in 4 years, and his family is going to spend approximately the same amount that they would have spent in 3 years or less at some of the other institutions. And that's where comparing financial aid packages and understanding the cost at the various different colleges really comes into play. It's good that families have choices, but we hope to, again, try to make Rhodes as affordable as possible to as many families as possible. And that's one way that we do it, by balancing merit and need-based aid.
And are international students able to benefit from both merit and need-based aid?
Oh, absolutely. We have a very similar process. Though they don't use the financial aid form, they are able to fill out the CSS profile, and we do have an institutional form that kind of measures a family's ability, or international students' ability, and what they can afford. And we try to meet them halfway.
Okay.
Right. So they do receive, based on their academics, scholarships, but they can also receive some need-based depending on their family situation. So we try, whether you're international, maybe different forms, but whether you're international or domestic, we've got you covered.
So when you said halfway, you're referring to sort of the combination of both merit and need.
Right. Well, I mean, again, the idea of affordability is to kind of meet families halfway.
Right? I see what you mean by that.
So, we may not be able to meet all the costs, but we make it a little bit more affordable, make it within reach. Is probably a better term.
I like that. I like that very much. That's terrific.
What about some of the resources that you use as administrator that you found very helpful and that our families might find helpful as well?
Sure, sure. Actually, I'm going to talk about this from a personal standpoint. So, parents in the room, I think you're going to get what I'm about to say. And students, probably not. Because when we were growing up, we didn't have internet.
What do you mean we?
We did not have internet. We did not have smartphones, right? Now there's so much information out there. And the key now is to really look into, the kind of website that has really accurate information, good information that's based on data, real data. And for me, when my wife and I, with our son and our daughter, looking at colleges and universities and trying to figure out and understand financial aid, the ones that stick out would be the College Board's Big Future, right? So that website that is actually designed to help families to actually navigate the process, and students can actually begin their college search process by indicating sort of what they're looking for in a school. Are you thinking about a big school, a small school? Are you thinking about a school in a suburban area, a city, and so on? So that really helps. NACAC, which is our national organization it's NACAC, the National Association for College Admission Counseling. That is a great website too, because there's a lot of research there that's available for all of you. It's all available for the public. The College Board, as I mentioned earlier, the Common Application.
These websites that you're giving, or these places that you're giving, are fantastic. But the financial aid form, www.studentaid.gov is an incredible resource to find out about student loans.
I'm about to say that. You got me.
That's the federal one, right?
That's
find
right.
out about applying for financial aid, about student loans, about student employment, and also about grants that are in your area. So what are some of the other ones that you have?
Well, since the fall of 2013, colleges and universities in our great country, we have to have what they call a net price calculator. An NPC for we use acronyms for everything, right? An NPC. And this allows students and families to actually input their financial aid information. And remember, you want to put good information in there so you can have really good estimates back. But that estimate will give you a sense in terms of what you might be looking at in terms of costs out of your pocket. So that is really helpful. And we use that quite a bit with my wife and myself. And here's what's neat. Some colleges and universities actually use the same net price calculator, which allows families to actually just easily transfer their information from one school to the next. So now it's easier for them to go ahead, and sometimes it's faster to compare the cost out of pocket from one school to the next. And at some institutions, their net price calculator will actually determine also if the family or the student might qualify for a merit scholarships. So that resource is really, really helpful. Now, there are other ones, but I feel like people are so important as a resource for you all to consider. If you have a college counselor, a guidance counselor at your school, take advantage of him, her, they, because they're there because they want to help you. They want to be in a position to put you to be successful. They have lots of great insight and historical information and data.
May I throw in another one here real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
In a previous life, I used to work for the state, right? I worked for Kentucky Higher Education, state of Kentucky, and we had counselors unaffiliated with any school or college that would go out. We had a team of them that would go out to various different parts of Appalachia and different parts of Kentucky. And I know Tennessee has the same. And I'm sure most all states have that, a state agency that come around to different colleges. So when you see them doing their financial aid nights, please make sure that you attend. A lot of financial aid administrators will be there as well.
You always stealing my thunder, man. It's right there. College Financial Aid Office. But you're the expert. I get it, right? Family members, don't discount family members because they have gone through the process, especially a sibling, right? Because it's more sort of recent than, let's say, an aunt, uncle, or a grandparent. Now, webinars like this one, I think are really helpful. There are videos out there that you can look at, but I want you guys to be careful. I do my fair share of YouTubing. I guess that's a verb now. But be careful, because you want to make sure that the source, is whatever they're talking about is actually good information for you. That again, that's actually based on actual real data. So that's important. But there's a lot of resources out there. And I'm very grateful for all of you. And if we could be of any service, we're like,
Absolutely.
we're like, I think we're the only bald guys in our unit, right? Are there more bald guys there?
Probably.
I think we're it.
I think we're it. I think
we're
it. I think you're true.
But let me ask you a question now. So let's talk about nuts and bolts.
Okay.
So we've talked about sort of more big picture about financial aid. Talk to us a little bit about, the nuts and bolts, what goes into a financial aid award.
Well, you're right. We've touched on it a little bit, but let's get into some details. One of the things that I tell families is to be aware of deadlines, right? So each college, as I mentioned, does things a little bit different. We have a little bit different deadlines. And so just be aware of the deadlines for various different things at your college. For instance, I mentioned December 1st. In order to qualify for our most competitive scholarships, December 1st, you need to remember to make sure that you get your application for admission into Rhodes so that we can consider you for our biggest scholarships. And so in addition to that, I talked about the college board or the CSS profile. Again, because we do not expect the financial aid form to be out before December, January, maybe even, then we need another resource in order to help you figure out what school works best for you from a financial standpoint. And the CSS profile from the college board allows us to do that. So simply by filling out that form, just have your tax forms available with you, because you will need to have tax information for that particular form. Complete it and send it to multiple schools that you want to, but definitely make sure that Rhodes is one of those schools. And we will, as quickly as we possibly can, turn that information around so that we can give you an estimate, right? A very more than an estimate. We can actually send you our financial aid award notifications to you, ones that we feel very confident with as far as your eligibility, not only for Rhodes money and institutional aid, but also we're able to calculate once you fill out the financial aid form, the FAFSA, what you might else be eligible for, whether it's federal aid, whether it's state aid. We can calculate all that from the CSS profile, but you've got to make sure that you meet the deadlines. So you mentioned early action. Early action, the deadline for that is coming around. November 15th is when those forms need to be in. So November the 15th, you'll want to have your application for admission and your application for federal student aid, the college, the CSS profile at that time, into our office so that we can send you that information. The next date is regular decision. So with regular decision, hopefully the deadline for that is January the 31st. So hopefully the FAFSA is available at that time. The key is to make sure you have those two applications in by your deadline, and we will do all that we can to send you a package that not only tells you what you're eligible for from a merit standpoint to reward your academic achievement, but also what you're eligible from a financial standpoint so that you can make the best decision possible. And you mentioned about our international students, right?
Yes.
And so again, our international students have a similar form, not the FAFSA, but they do have a similar form that they need to fill out. And we will send out their information as soon as we possibly can to tell them what we will contribute as far as what they qualify for merit and scholarship aid. Once you get that, then you can have several conversations with it. We're happy to talk with families all the time to not only explain what it is that they received, but if there's anything available in the future that they may qualify for, we'll help them work through that. If there's been a change in your family situation, that's one of the things that we do as well. We try to, such as a job loss or serious illness. I mean, we don't want those things to happen, but sometimes they do. And so that's another reason for you to contact the financial aid office at your school that you plan to attend. And we will help you work through that to kind of revise those financial aid forms so that we can give you, the best estimate possible. You laugh at me when I say this, but one of the things I love to do is give away money, right? And I'm fortunate to be in a job that allows me to do that. And so we want to be able to help, not only me, but everyone in our office.
Wow, must be nice to be this guy. But let me follow up with a couple of things. And I think this is pertinent. And so from a personal standpoint, my family and I we qualified for a good chunk of financial aid, but we still had to pay X amount because, we made enough that, it looks like we should be paying X amount. But seeing that amount, there's no way we could have written a check for that whole amount. What are the options for families? Is there a payment plan option? Tell us about that.
Yeah. So, I keep talking about affordability, right? And though that we try to make it affordable, it's not free, right? And there is a cost associated with that in most cases. No, you don't have to write a check. One of the things that we do in the financial aid office is we issue what you're eligible for, but there's a couple resources that we may hold back. One of them is called the PLUS loan, the parent loan for undergraduate students. So it's a federal loan program. There's very little. It only looks for adverse credit history, so it doesn't hit your credit check, but it allows a family to borrow the additional amount that they need. The difference between maybe they haven't been able to save what the financial aid form says they should have. Right. And believe me, I know I saw the same thing when my children applied for financial aid, applied for college.
And interest rates are pretty good, right?
And interest rates are pretty good, right? They evaluate those every July 1st, and they are pretty good. So that's available to you. But also most colleges, including Rhodes, has a payment plan. So you don't have to have all the money up the first day of class. You can set up a payment plan that spreads it out throughout the semester, typically 5 to 6 payments over the course of the semester, which makes it within reach of a lot of our families as well. So those are definitely some options if you don't have the money right there at the first day of class.
Correct. So what if a family, let's say a family member served in the armed forces, and if you have family members out there right now, thank you very much for your service. So, tell us about sort of the Yellow Ribbon program and the GI Bill.
Well, we, as many colleges do, we do participate in called VA benefits. One of the largest programs out there, Chapter 33, is educational benefits. So that's the chapter in the regulations that attributes to that. And so we have a lot of students. We have several students that qualify for that, and so they qualify based on their parents. So you don't have to be a veteran. If you are a veteran and you have a child that's going to school, then you may qualify for either Chapter 33 or Chapter 35. The difference between the two, Chapter 33 is education benefits. So it actually pays specifically for tuition. The VA, we help you fill out the forms. We send that information to the VA administration, and then they basically write a check each semester for a portion of the aid, whatever's not covered by your merit scholarship or your need-based scholarship. The other one is Chapter 35, and that's housing allowance only. And so we do have some families that they don't qualify for the tuition benefit, but they do qualify for Chapter 35. And so those families will receive a stipend, usually, I can't remember, $1,200 to $1,500 or something like that, to help out with those housing costs. And so we do have some families that do that.
That's a lot for a lot of families. $1,200
it's a lot.
It's nothing to
absolutely. But our veterans deserve every penny of it, don't they? And so, and we're happy to award that. The Yellow Ribbon is a part where we make sure that families that go to school here, because more than likely they're going to receive a merit scholarship, we're able to give them an additional $5,000 from the VA.
So, so we have a good number of students that participate in ROTC.
Yes.
And that is yet another source, right, of financial support.
That is. For those families that qualify for ROTC, we have a partnership with the University of Memphis, in which our students go there in order to train with their students. But a lot of our students actually receive a scholarship through the ROTC. We have Army, Marine, and Navy that we're partnership with. And most of the time, many of those that qualify for the scholarship, it's a full tuition scholarship.
Got it.
Right. And so I think we have about 19 students right now. Maybe. Yeah. We have several students. I don't know the exact number, but have several students that qualify for that benefit. Great. And basically we supplement housing. So we're not able to give them with financial aid, you can only receive up to the cost of attendance. And since VA or ROTC is covering their tuition, we agree to cover their housing, whether they live on campus or off campus. So that's a really, really good benefit. Well,
I will say that there's a good number of websites out there where you all could learn about these outside scholarships, that are not affiliated with the college or universities that you all are looking into. And certainly, by all means, take advantage. Because you may have heard that so many of these external or outside scholarships, go unclaimed year to year.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Take advantage of that. And some of them really do not require sort of a big drawn out application process. So do take advantage of that. You know, the College Board Big Future, the Common Application, NACAC, Princeton Review, FinAid, they all have really good information. And certainly for international families, I just learned this actually a couple of days ago, you know, there are lenders out there for international families. You know, remember what you sent me, was it last week? NerdWallet actually rated sort of the top 10 lenders for international families. So it's out there, guys. Take advantage of good information that's based on good data. Hey, look.
We want to make sure that we have plenty of time to answer questions, right?
Well, before we do that, though, we have to talk about, and this is, I think, part of what we want them, and I think you all have learned a little bit about, you know, what you can expect from Rhodes, from the financial aid office.
Okay.
But I'm just going to put on sort of my little plug for Rhodes. And I think this is really important because you may not know that Rhodes is actually one of the few national liberal arts colleges that's actually located in a major city. There's 904 small colleges in the United States. We're one of 26, and we're one of the few national ones, again, located in a major city. And that is a huge benefit for our students, faculty, and staff, especially for our students, because you're learning so many cool things in the classroom, right, here on campus, but you have this big laboratory in the city of Memphis with Fortune 500 companies, Fortune 1000 companies, St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, arguably the largest research hospital in the United States. We have all these different businesses. We have great culture, nightlife. And I know you talked about the food. Obviously, it's right here in front of me. But that's something families can expect. We're talking about over 70 majors and minors and certificates. And gang, that's a lot for a liberal arts school because most of them offer just about 40. And then if you couple that with the fact that everything is for and about students here, right? Everything, all the programming, attention from faculty, being mentored by faculty, that is really, I think, compelling. The value proposition is such that we have the Rhodes Promise, but that guarantees that our students will be able to do and will be funded for research, study abroad, right? Or some kind of work opportunity, experiential learning. So that, I think, speaks to, the kind of investment that Rhodes is more than happy to make for its students. And I know you've talked about sort of the financial aid piece. Could you just quickly talk a little bit about sort of, the percentage of students receiving aid?
Well, we've talked about it several times, right? Affordability. Right. We try to give you a high quality education at an affordable price, just within reach. And we do so, again, by the combination of two. 98% of our students receive some type of financial aid, whether it's merit or need-based or a combination of the two. We have, on average, total aid packages around $44,000, just a little over $44,000 per student. Right, that's considerable.
That's great.
65% of our students will receive a merit scholarship.
That's 65%. That's a good number.
Again, that just simply shows the balance of merit, how we value merit and need-based aid. And so something new this year, I asked Gil about early decision and what are some of the benefits. And we talked about this, right? So yes, some schools that are very selective, you may have a better chance of getting admitted ED. Rhodes has decided this year that for those that apply ED, we will award them an additional $3,000 grant on top of whatever merit scholarship, whether they apply for need-based financial aid or not. And so, again, that's one of the things that we can talk about. So let me go ahead and get to some of these questions.
You're not joking about wanting to give money away. So let's look at some of our questions here. And we have our first question here. The question is, should we fill out the need-based CSS profile even if we think we may not be eligible for need-based aid?
Well, I can tell you one thing. If you don't fill out the CS profile, you will not be eligible for need-based aid, right? So, you're more than welcome to. We won't force you to fill out the CS profile. You don't have to. We just provide it as an opportunity for you. But if you apply for admission, you receive your merit scholarship, and you still think that you need a little bit more, the only way that you're going to be able to apply is to complete one of the forms that we have, either the CSS profile or the FAFSA. And usually it's better to kind of do that up front. So we strongly encourage you, at least the first year, to fill out the additional form. It really doesn't take, it may take you 45 minutes to an hour. But we're talking about investing in the rest of your student's life. So, we won't make you. We won't make you do that.
I filled it out for X number of years, for my children and for our sake as a household. And even though sometimes it appeared that we're not going to qualify for much, well, one year it happened. Wow, we qualified for some financial aid.
Yeah.
So I feel like, you don't have much to lose, right? Just make sure you have your good information, all your tax forms, so that you can complete the form as accurately as possible.
Yeah.
So
the next question is a really good one about state grants. I talked about state grants earlier. And so state grants typically, and this is true almost all the way across the board, there are a few exceptions. State grants are designed to keep people in their states, right? And so if you're in Tennessee, because Rhodes is located in Tennessee, they're able to get, Tennessee residents are able to get Tennessee scholarships and Tennessee grants. There are North Carolina scholarships, there's South Carolina scholarships, Georgia has scholarships, but all of them are designed, they only get, residents of that state only get it if they attend a college in that state. Unfortunately, they're kind of restricted in that.
Right.
And so they do not cross borders, unfortunately. So that's one of the things, but however, we understand that we're a national school. And so we do understand that our Tennessee residents are going to get a little bit of additional support from the state, and our out-of-state students, we extend to them a little bit of different aid in order to kind of offset that to some degree. So don't let that to be a deterrent for crossing the border to come into Tennessee.
And again, because of our merit scholarships, we reward students who have really achieved really good marks at the respective secondary school. So that really helps. So it looks like there's a question here about, all the different dates that we've talked about and all the different application plans. Isn't it true that so long as you apply by the application deadline for the plan that you have chosen, you should be okay? Is that true?
For the most part, yes.
Yeah. So if I'm early decision and I'm thinking about applying, let's say November 1, which is coming up, so long as I have my financial aid forms completed and submitted and whatever other supporting information, more likely, don't you think that by the time I'm offered admission, I might also get financial aid information?
Well, definitely at Rhodes, right? That's the way that we do it. But we've given away a lot of different dates here, and so one of the best things I encourage you, we have on our website, we have a little tab under admissions. We have affordability, and it has those different dates that are listed there. So go to each school that you're looking at. They'll have the dates clearly listed. And sometimes it's a good idea, especially if you're applying to multiple schools, just make out a little spreadsheet. If you're one of those, or if you maybe like a list, right, of the different schools and those different scholarships or a deadline so that you can kind of keep track of those.
It looks like there's a question here, Michael. Do we ever fully fund a student's education? Maybe even at least 90% meeting the cost of attendance. What do you think of that?
It varies for students, right? I mean, it really, really does. We have merit-based scholarships, which I told you the dollar amounts of the $20,000 to $40,000 on that. But when we talk about need-based aid and we talk about federal aid, state aid, and combining all the different resources, including student loans, it is very possible that some families, some of our needier families that maybe receive Pell Grants, they receive state grants and all of those, we do end up meeting 90% or sometimes even more. But it all depends on the family and their situation and the resources that are available to them based on those indexes that we receive from the financial aid forms, the CSS profile, and the FAFSA.
Great. I'll take this one. This is there a financial aid benefit for applying early action? So I don't want to speak for other institutions, but I have to say that most institutions, if not all, have financial aid budgets. And this is why I encourage everyone to apply, if not early decision 2, which is the same thing, but different dates, but early action. If you have the choice between early action and regular, apply early. I'll tell you why, because sometimes, well, guess what? With the budgets that many schools have, by the time they get to regular decision, not only do they might have fewer spaces available for admission to offer, but also their financial aid their budget may have been also realized, or much of it has been realized. So to me, there's no detriment. There's nothing negative to apply early action. And here at Rhodes, again, if you apply, and Michael, you mentioned this, the priority deadline is December 1. If you apply by December 1, right, that application, and there's no separate application, the common application is our application, you will be automatically reviewed for our premier scholarships. Now, if you apply after December 1, we still have scholarships, of course, to extend. But again, understand the word priority. We try to prioritize those families, those students that apply by December 1.
Right.
So there's a question here about to clarify how an ROTC student files. How do they qualify? And then there's a housing scholarship question about it.
Well, there's really not a housing scholarship for ROTC. So I'm glad you asked that question. So ROTC scholarships, as I mentioned before, they receive this ROTC's. Not all ROTC students receive a housing scholarship, right? So let's start there. ROTC students who receive the full scholarship from ROTC, because their tuition's covered by the ROTC, Rhodes ensures that Rhodes covers their housing. Now, a lot of our students, they'll receive a merit scholarship. As I mentioned before, 98% of our students receive a merit scholarship. So it's a no-brainer, right? You receive that and you already have a merit scholarship and it will cover your housing. Mm-hmm. If for whatever reason you're one of the 2% that don't receive a merit scholarship or don't receive any type of aid, mm-hmm. and you're a ROTC recipient, then Rhodes will make sure that we then cover your housing, regardless if we gave you a scholarship before. Mm-hmm. So really, it's just simply, if you're a ROTC student and you qualify for the ROTC scholarship, mm-hmm. then know that your full cost mm-hmm. is going to be covered here at Rhodes. Your cost of your tuition is covered mm-hmm. by ROTC, mm-hmm. and your housing is going to be covered by Rhodes.
Got it. Now, just to be sure, to clarify, 98% of our students receive some form of financial aid, right?
Yes.
And many of them receive institutional aid in the form of grants and scholarship. But in terms of the premier scholarships, we're at 65%, correct?
That is correct, yes.
Okay, just want to make sure. All right. Now, here's our last question of the day. If you get an outside scholarship or several outside scholarships that only cover tuition, can Rhodes aid pay for the other things like room and board?
Okay. We may get way too far in the weeds on this. But yes, a lot of scholarships have stipulations. Right. Mm-hmm. Especially when we're talking about, employee benefits. They must go towards tuition. Matter of fact, the VA benefits, Chapter 33, says it has to go towards tuition. Mm. So what Rhodes does, Rhodes institutional aid that you just talked about, whether it's merit or scholarship, we don't just go towards tuition. We go towards tuition and room and board if you live on campus. Mm-hmm. So what that allows
of attendance.
So it's direct cost of attendance.
Direct cost.
Right. Direct cost of attendance. So what that allows us to do, if a student has received a scholarship that specifies that it only goes towards tuition, what Rhodes does is we apply Rhodes money to their other expenses first, which should increase the amount of tuition that's left over mm-hmm. for the other scholarship to cover. So it's a matter of shifting funds. So we prioritize it so that the families get the best benefit possible. But there are times that if it specifies as tuition only, and they're only, say a student is, for whatever reason, is only paying tuition at Rhodes because mm-hmm. they live at home, they've got a special allowance to live at home, we've given them a scholarship. It has to go towards tuition, and they're receiving an outside scholarship that goes towards tuition. If both combined are more than tuition, mm-hmm. then we have to send a portion of that money back.
Right. We'll end up reducing some of our aid.
Well, in a lot of cases, we'll reduce the other aid, whichever comes first. It depends on how the scholarships are written. We will handle that, but just rest assured that we will do it in such a way. We'll have to follow federal guidelines. We'll have to follow also the rules of the scholarship itself. Right. But we'll do it in a way that best benefits the student. Right. Always. Right. Students first.
Well, I have to say, the fact that we now have these wonderful scholarships, and even within the sort of Shelby County, we have actually what we call full ride scholarships, which is really neat, right? And it shows sort of our investment in Shelby County that, we have a scholarship called the Day Scholarship that will meet the full cost, the direct cost of attendance that you talked about. So that's pretty cool.
That is really cool.
All right. So we're now at time And we want to thank you all for joining us tonight. Again, if we could be of any service, we're the only bald guys in enrollment and admission and financial aid. Please reach out to us. We're happy to connect with you. And more importantly, students, account for your fit, account for your match, account for the value proposition, including outcomes. What students are doing after graduation. Are they employed? Are they in graduate school? There are no guarantees. Colleges can't do that. But you can tell a lot about a school like ours, where the vast majority will finish in 4 years. We have one of the highest 4-year graduation rates in the United States. Our placement rate is amazing. In fact, last year, 97% of our graduates were employed or in graduate school within 6 months. And when they're working, they're getting what we call first choice jobs. You know why they call it first choice jobs?
Well, why don't you tell me?
Because it was their first choice. All right, gang. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Gil. This is Michael. Thank you all. Best wishes to you. We hope you all apply to Rhodes. Take care.
Thank you for coming.